Alrighty, hello, and we've got another recipe to try. So I hope that y'all are excited to try it. We're on a journey of finding recipes that we can make without vinegar because I have a sensitivity or an allergy to them. So if you've watched any of my other videos, welcome back. And if you are just running across this, hello, my name is Paige, and I enjoy making these new recipes with everybody and sharing them. So today we're going to make homemade ketchup because regular store-bought ketchup is full of vinegar. But hopefully we can make some ketchup that tastes similar enough to regular ketchup that it won't be awful. So we're going to try it. This recipe that I have came from smokegears.com. I look up recipes on Pinterest, and so this one I just put in homemade tomato ketchup, and that's the title of this one, and it took me to this kind of like a blog post with a recipe in it. And we're going to try it. It uses fresh tomatoes. When I was writing them all down, I did write down 2 recipes for each sauce that I wanted to make. So for mustard, mayonnaise, Dijon mustard, honey mustard, ketchup, barbecue sauce. I think that's all I have wrote down so far. But I wrote down 2 recipes per sauce so that if there's one that I like better than the other, I will keep that one. So far, the yellow mustard recipe that I had and the Dijon mustard recipe that I had, I liked the first one's best. Now when I go to remake mustard, I may try the other recipe, or I may just stick with the first one that I tried. The mayonnaise recipe, the first recipe that I made, didn't do well. I didn't like that at all. So then I had to go with the second mayonnaise recipe. Complete success. I made mayonnaise. So this is the first ketchup recipe that I wrote down. So we'll hope for the best. There is not a ton of steps. However, to be real, I have already spent an hour in prepping, which this recipe uses fresh tomatoes, fresh onions, and fresh garlic. So it was dicing up the tomatoes, dicing up the onions, dicing up the garlic, and processing the tomatoes and the onions because we are using a small food processor in this recipe. And I actually have a food processor now, a proper food processor. Before I just had a little knockoff Ninja Bullet, like a cup blender, and it would work on some things but not on other things. But I bought a immersion blender off of Amazon just for super cheap so that I could make some mayonnaise because it did not work in the cup blender that I had. And then with my immersion blender, I got the immersion blender attachment, a whisk attachment, and I was trying to think if there's anything else, but no, and then a little food processor thing. So I have it kind of all apart because I've been kind of prepping, and it'll look weird. But, so this is my little food processor, my proper food processor that my immersion blender just sticks into the top, and it'll really finely chop everything. I was trying to think of because it really chopped. My tomatoes are essentially soup because it chopped them so finely. I already had them chopped pretty fine when I put them in there, but then after I processed them, it's essentially soup. So it's a good food processor. So okay, so it said that this recipe was from smokegears.com. The ingredients for this recipe are a little back and forth because some things have kind of a measurement of what to have and some things don't. So that's a little weird. So it says fresh and ripened tomatoes. Doesn't say how many. I had about 3 handfuls of tomatoes that my brother-in-law and his girlfriend had gave to us. And there was a few medium-sized tomatoes, and then there was a few that were like they would just fit in the palm of your hand. So I had probably 6 or 7 of the ones that were big enough to fit in your hand, and then I think 2 or 3 of what I would call like a medium-sized tomato that you could find at the store. And then 2 to 3 onions. I did do 3 onions, and I had to put the lid on it because I was crying. And I don't know if you can see, but it doesn't even look like onions anymore. It just looks like mush. And that was because I ran it through that red is because I did the tomatoes first and then the onions. But ran it through the food processor, and boy, it mulched it up. Salt to taste. So we have our salt ready to put in a little. Remember to always add a little at the beginning, and then you can always add more, but once it's in there, you can't take it out. 5 to 6 garlic cloves. Now, I only did 1 of my garlic cloves because I got a bulb, and when I was taking it apart, I did not realize how big those cloves were going to be in there. There's only 4 cloves in the entire bulb, and they're huge. Let me get one of them. This is one of the cloves of garlic that came out of that bulb. I'm used to, maybe a little sliver of this being a clove. So, these are gigantic. So I had chopped up one just a little smaller than this. I got it in my little tasty ingredient dish here. I got it with my pan set. So they're finally getting a use. I never use those for anything other than sauce. And then, so yeah, instead of the 5 to 6 small garlic cloves, I just did 1 gigantic garlic clove. Sugar to taste. So I got my sugar canister sitting out here. Red chilies. I'm just going to do the crushed red pepper flakes because I feel like that'll get some of the heat and the, flavor in there. And we might blend it again, or we might not. I don't mind the red pepper flakes. If you use like actual red chili peppers, I would assume you would just dice those up real small, run those in a cycle through the food processor so that they're I don't know really what to call it. It says chopped, but ground until it's ground up. And then 2 milliliters of vinegar. I'm not sure what that is in like ounces or cups, but I do have a little measuring cup set that looks like beakers. And this beaker will hold 5 milliliters, so we'll only need 2 milliliters. And then some black pepper, which I'm just going to use out of the pepper shaker that we keep on our table. Okay, so step 1 I've already done because that was a little bit of prep and I didn't want to keep the camera waiting forever while I was doing it, is of course wash the tomatoes, get the stems off of them, and then you want to do a small dice or like a real fine dice. And then that was it for step 1, just chop it into small pieces, those tomatoes. Step 2 was small dice the garlic and the onions, which I did. Step 3 was blend or grind the chopped ingredients in the blender for 2 to 3 minutes. I plopped them in my food processor and got them very well ground. They're super chopped up. And then the next step, which is step number 4, is we're going to cook the ground ingredients with 16 ounces of water, which I have already measured out in my mason jar. And then we're going to slowly add in the sugar red chili peppers, salt, and black pepper, like while it's cooking in the pan. This video is going to be a little bit different because I'm not sure how long it's necessarily going to have to cook, and really how long it'll take overall. I don't want to give you guys a gigantic long video, but we'll see how long it takes. If I get it in the pan and it's going to take too long, I might finish up the recipe, kind of give you a good idea about it, and then maybe I can post like a final version as like a short or like a short video, one of the two. Step 5 is when the sauce reaches a thick consistency, combine in the vinegar. Of course, we're not using vinegar. We're going to use, well, I guess it's kind of, but we're not using white vinegar. We're going to use apple cider vinegar because for me, that is safe. My sensitivity is only with distilled white vinegar. So apple cider vinegar is safe. If it wasn't safe, or if it's not safe for you, you can use lemon juice. Sub in lemon juice for this. Combine the apple cider vinegar for me, and then you can add other spices in there if you need to, or if you want to. If you want to put in some garlic powder for it to be more of a garlicky ketchup, if you want to put in more red chili flakes, you could do that. If you, I'm trying to think if there's any other seasonings that I would necessarily put in ketchup, but I think that would be about it. Is just like a powdered version of the ingredients that are already in there. Like you could do onion powder for more of an onion taste. I don't think we're going to have any issue with this. These were strong onions. You could do some garlic powder for some more garlic taste. I think we're going to be okay on the garlic. You could probably do some cayenne pepper if you wanted a kick in your ketchup. I'm just going for some regular old ketchup today. But let's see. We'll go on to step 6. It says to allow your ketchup to cook in your pan for about 5 minutes after you add in that other after you add in the vinegar and the extra spices if you want to, and then let it cool off in the pan, which is pretty common for the recipes that we've done so far. Let it cool in the pan, and then you can put it in a sterilized, airtight glass container. Depending on how much this ends up being, I might really just use this mason jar, because I've got a new flat. If you're putting anything canned, I don't think I'll be canning it, but rather, anyway, if you're putting anything in a mason jar, please make sure to use a brand new flat and then your ring. And if it ends up canning in the fridge, like sealing itself in the fridge, please double check it, because you don't want to get any germs or things like botulism or bacteria or any of that bad stuff in your ketchup or anything that you're canning. Please be careful using mason jars to store stuff. We don't want anybody to get sick. But, I have my orange tasty pan that we used for the yellow mustard. I actually thought it would be a great size for the yellow mustard. It was so big for the yellow mustard. So for the ketchup, I think this will be a good measurement. No, it doesn't tell me how big this pot is or how much it'll hold, but I'll move my cutting board out of the way because I don't have anything else to chop, and we'll put this in our pan. And that way, if I end up seeing that this size pan is not big enough, I can move it to a bigger pan and let you know quicker. So we will add the tomatoes, which, like I said, after I put them in the food processor, it might as well be soup. So I just put it in this. Like I said, it started out as regular old tomatoes. They have now been pulverized into soup. So we'll put that in there. Okay, and then it might be the perfect size pan. And then we'll add the onions, which On the top, they look a little drier because they weren't mixing with the tomato juice that was still in the food processor, but we'll add all of those in. I'm not sure if this is going to be a super onion flavored, I'll use a spoon I was using to get it out of the food processor, put it in there so it doesn't splash. I can't remember what it was saying, so it must not be that important. Okay, so getting those onions put in there. Oh, maybe I was saying, I don't know what this flavor is going to turn out like, because without knowing how much tomato to use, or how many tomatoes to use, it almost feels like there's the same amount of tomato and onion in this ratio. So I hope it doesn't end up being onion flavored ketchup. So we'll try to hope for the best there, but the onions are in there. I'll try to show it to you without spilling everything everywhere. Onions are in there. Woo. And then put in the garlic, which I did not run it through the food processor, but I finally chopped it. And get that all in there. And then cook the ground ingredients with 16 ounces of water. So I'll add the water in. And I hope this doesn't overwhelm the size of my pan here. Oh, okay, it didn't. I didn't do bad at all. Okay. I'll try to show you how this looks in the pan without it being nuts. I'm going to pick up the camera. Ignore my trash can. So it's about the width of a finger in the bottom of the, or no, like a finger from the top of the pan there. Now that I have noticed it, it's a distraction to me. So I'm going to close that trash can. Because after prepping and cooking earlier today, we'll probably take the trash out tonight. But you're going to ignore that you've seen that. Alright, so we'll cook that. We'll slowly add some sugar, red chili, salt, and black pepper. I am, just from the get-go, going to add some of those things. So I'm going to add probably half a teaspoon, quarter of a teaspoon of salt in. And I'm really hoping that this recipe does well, because I love ketchup. Like, it might be kind of gross, but I was the kid, like, waiting in line at McDonald's, eating a ketchup packet, because I just ripped it from where they had the ketchup packet. So we were waiting in line to order, and I was sucking on a ketchup packet. I was that kid. I love ketchup. They had to keep me away from the ketchup at Brahms, because you just get it in that little cup. I would just go over there and get a little cup and be eating the ketchup. I love ketchup. We'll cook that. Okay, so I got some salt in there. I'm going to add a little bit of sugar, which, look, I got my little sugar canister, and I recently just got a little label maker so that I could label things. I'm getting organized, friends. Okay, so I need, alright, well, I did some prep, but forgot to get a spoon to put some sugar into the mix. Hold on. Okay, so I feel like I'm not going to be upset with sugar. It says sugar to taste. Now, with the amount of onion that is in here, I'm going to start with a soup spoon, or the big spoon out of a silverware set worth of sugar, because I don't think it will kill me. Plop that in there, and then just some red chilies, some crushed red peppers. Put some, oh my gosh, I can't even open the thing. Okay. It's pointless anyway, I can't get very many out. Okay, so I've got probably like a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons of red chili or crushed red pepper flakes in there, red chili flakes. And I'm going to mix that up. I'm going to plop it on the stove. I'm going to pause the video because I don't know how long this is going to take to get to a thick consistency. But once it is at the... Oh, I forgot the black pepper. I'm going to add a little bit of that. But the thick consistency, after it hits that, then we're going to add in the 2 milliliters of apple cider vinegar. And then let that cook for, I think it said, yeah, 5 more minutes, and then let it cool in the pan. So I am going to pause the video, get this mixed up, get it on the stove cooking. Oh, you can see my spoon holders back there. I never know what's going to be in the frame. So when I start looking around my little viewfinder here, or my screen that shows it, it's always a surprise. But I'm going to get this cooking. I'm going to pause the video, and hopefully I will be right back. If I am not right back, look for a short or a very short video coming after this, because that means it took a long time to cook, and I didn't want to have it be 30 minutes on a pause video. So I'll be right back, maybe. Okay, so I just got that on the stove. You can see it kind of down in that corner. And I just stirred it up, and I got a little taste of it to see where we were at. Oh my goodness. The amount of onion that is in that. I love onion, so that's fine. If this ends up just being a red onion flavor sauce, I'm going to be a little disappointed. But like I said, if this one doesn't work out, we will use it up, kind of incorporate it. Maybe I'll put it in some barbecue sauce, or make some barbecue sauce with it and use it up. Because boy, it is a strong onion flavor. So what I'm going to try to do is add a little bit more sugar to try to offset the... I don't really know what to classify the onion flavor. I don't know if it's a bitter flavor, but it is very strong onion in there. So I'm going to add, I think maybe 1.5 more spoons of this and get that mixed in there. See what that tastes like. I'll come back for a little update before I leave it to cook. 1 second. Okay. Oh my goodness. I actually added 2 more of these dinner spoons into that mixture, and I took another little taste of it. I'm 1000% sure I got a whole bite, or well, not a whole bite, because it was just like what was stuck to the spoon. Oh, in between the red pepper flakes that I got and the already strong flavor of the onion that's in that sauce, whew, it's burning my tongue. I need to get a drink. So I think I might leave it alone, see what it turns out like. If it's a bust, it's a bust. I'm not going to waste sugar, pouring sugar into there for it to be not great. So I'm going to leave it like it was. Leave it like it is. Let it cook down. See what we end up with at the end of it. It is coming to a pretty slow boil. So I'm going to pause the video again. Maybe I'll give you a little update. Maybe let's see what time it is. It's right at 8:30. So I'm going to wait until 8:35. Give you another little update. And see where we're at with that consistency. Maybe my tongue will stop burning by then too. I will see you here in just a couple minutes. Alrighty, so it's been 5-6 minutes. I was doing some dishes while I was waiting. There isn't much update on our ketchup in the pan. I mean, I can tell that it's getting hot, but there's not much change in the texture or thickness going on right now. So maybe we'll give it another 5 minutes and I'll do another update then. Okay, so it's been another 4 or 5 minutes. I didn't wait near as long this time. I'm starting to get some of the really slow surface bubbles starting to show up. So I feel like we're working on our way to a good little boil so it can thicken up. It is smelling very onion heavy in my kitchen right now. And we're getting a good amount of steam out of the pot now. So it's working on it. It's just taking a little bit of time. But one other thing, in that 5-minute break, excuse me, I don't know why every time I try to talk on a video I end up with the coughs. But during that, I had washed my food processor and my food processor blade, and it hit me to maybe remind some people or inform maybe a new cook, because I'm new to making all of these recipes, but I've been messing around in the kitchen for a little while. Please, when you use knives, food processor blades, blender blades, whatever, with acidic foods, wash them so that you are not wearing down the finish on your knives and your blades, because they will rust, and then once they're rusted, it is almost impossible to get that rust off of there unless you really know what you're doing. And I might just not really know what I'm doing once my knives are rusted, but just to put that out there, pretty please, if you are using this recipe or just in general, cutting onions, cutting tomatoes, cutting garlic, cutting really acidic fruits and vegetables, please wash your blades and take care of them so that they don't tear apart, because knives are expensive. But let's see. Still just slow bubbles on the ketchup, and pardon my little side rant there. I'm gonna pause it for another 5-ish minutes and come back in and give you a little update. I also like the update version. I said earlier maybe if it took too long to cook I would just do like a short after this video, but I feel like it might be beneficial to see how long it actually takes, because the recipe doesn't actually tell us. So we'll take another little 5-minute break and I'll be right back. Okay, so another 5 minutes has passed, and we're actually starting to get to the level of boil where it's kind of foamy on top, and the fumes from the onions are starting to burn my eyes. So that's where we're at right now. Oh, and it's actually getting to be kind of a quick boil. I just stirred it before I turned the camera back on, and it's already kind of foaming up again a little bit. So that's maybe just like one step below a full rolling boil. So I'm going to give it another 5 minutes, come back, give you an update, see where we're at then. Okay, so we are at a full rolling boil at this point. I'm keeping a close eye on it, making sure it doesn't burn to the bottom or anything. I actually turned my vent fan on because the fumes were getting pretty strong, and that helped quite a bit. So just for reference, maybe turn the vent fan on. Oh, excuse my puppy, Zaylee. Zaylee, come here. But we are at a rolling boil, and it's getting there in terms of heat. So we'll give it another 5-ish minutes and come back in and do another update. I think so far we are at 25 minutes of cooking time. So I'll try to keep track of that. Be right back. Alrighty, it's been 5 more minutes. We are still at a full rolling boil. Not much of a difference that I can tell when I'm stirring it, in terms of like it's not getting any harder to stir, it's not getting any thicker that I can feel yet. So we're just going to keep watching it. We are at a full 30 minutes of cooking. However, we did start with a cold pan and a cold burner. So I don't know how much that'll affect the time if you added ingredients into a hot pan. Like if you got the water boiling first and then added this stuff. I'm not sure how that'll change anything, but I do have a little update. While I was waiting, I have my that's just under 2 milliliters of apple cider vinegar waiting to go in, and on the other side it shows what it is out of a teaspoon. So if you don't have anything that has milliliters on it, that is about a third of a teaspoon, or maybe just like a little over a third of a teaspoon that we'll put in apple cider vinegar once it is a little thicker. Like I said, I wish that this gave me even a little bit of a heads up on how long this is going to have to stew for, but it says to cook it until it is thick, and then we'll add the apple cider vinegar in there. So we'll wait another 5 minutes. It's been 5 more minutes, and I can't tell much difference in the consistency while I'm stirring it yet, but I do notice that it is about a knuckles worth, or like from here to here. There's a line where it started on the top of the pan, and it's about a knuckles worth down from that line. So I know that I'm boiling out some water. It's just taking a little bit of time. Still at a full rolling boil. I haven't changed the heat. I have it on essentially like medium, or on my stove it is 5 because it has the numbers, so it's all the way down in the middle, or on medium heat. We'll give it another 5 minutes, check back in on it, and I'll give you a little update. It's been 5 more minutes, and I realized after the last update that I did not turn off the vent fan, so I apologize if you couldn't hear me because that thing is loud. 5 more minutes, not much change in the levels that we're looking at, so I don't think we've boiled off too much more water, but it is starting to give a little bit of resistance when I stir it and kind of get it off of the bottom. So hopefully there's not a whole lot longer, because we are now at 40 minutes of cook time or boil time or whatever. So if nothing else, we'll get an accurate cook time for this recipe. But see you in 5 more minutes. 10-minute update, because there really wasn't much to update at 5 minutes, and there's not much change at 10 minutes. So I might give it another 10 minutes, see if anything's changed. I think it looks like there's a little bit more water boiled off, but there's not much change in the consistency stirring it so far. So we'll give it another 10 more minutes. 10-minute update, and still boiling away. It is, when I check it at like the 5-minute marks in between, it is starting to get thicker at the bottom. So a lot of that water is kind of rising up. I hope that that's a good sign. I've never made ketchup before, so it is getting a little bit more resistance when I go to stir it every 5 minutes, because I don't want to leave it for too long and let it burn. But that's the only update I got so far. We are at 1 hour of cook time so far. So make sure you have some time when you're making this recipe, because I spent an hour of prep time getting the tomatoes, onions, and garlic the tomatoes washed and diced and run through the food processor. The onions peeled and diced and ran through the food processor, and the garlic peeled and finely chopped. So we're at an hour prep time, and now an hour cook time. So 10 more minutes. Alrighty, it has been 10 more minutes, and I think it's actually going to be the last 10-minute update I do, just because this video is getting long, and I don't know how much longer that's going to take. So I might have to do a second video, like a 2-parter or something, or tomorrow I have another recipe in mind, so I may just do like a continuation of this ketchup, and then also whatever recipe I make tomorrow. I'm not super sure on that. I'm thinking the honey mustard, but I'm not 1,000% sure that that's what I'm going to do. So don't hold it against me. But I'm going to make it a part 2. I'm going to end this as part 1. And I don't know how much longer it's going to take. But the good news is, once it gets thick to a thick consistency, I'm just going to add my, oh my goodness, excuse me, I got a hiccup. What is this? 1/3 teaspoon or 2 milliliters of apple cider vinegar, because we are avoiding the white vinegar. If you don't have a problem with white vinegar, you can put white vinegar in yours, but I appreciate if you made it through this video. It's a little longer than I wanted it to be, but an hour prep and an hour and 10 minutes cook time so far. I just don't know how much longer it's going to take. But I don't have much to add. I guess I'll just see you in the next video. It'll be kind of part 2 of the ketchup plus the recipe that I'm going to make tomorrow. So I will see you tomorrow. Thank you for hanging out with me.